one of the things was with the Derek Chauvin trial. Um, the same expert that the defense is using to justify Derek Chauvin strangling George Floyd to death is the same expert that was used in another trial, in another case, uh, across the country, I think in Washington, D.C., of a police officer choking a young unarmed black person to death. And he was basically trying to use the same justification in the other trial that got the officer off. I thought it was I wasn't surprised. Anybody who's seen these type of things, uh, or seen this type of shenanigans, I wasn't surprised to see it. Um, they are going to try to find every justification to prove that what we saw on the tape for 8 minutes and 46 seconds wasn't a legalized lynching, wasn't a modern day lynching. A police officer using all of his body weight, and the other police officers standing around and watching a man get choked to death for maybe having a fake $20 bill. It's they wonder why people are rioting. So if that wasn't bad enough, what's happened since then? A young man that was 21 years old was shot and killed by police because allegedly he had a rosary or air fresheners on his rear window, and that's why they pulled him over. And after pulling him over, they did a fishing expedition. That's what it is. And they found out that he had a warrant. The young 21-year-old tried to run, which is not a good thing. He tried to run, and the cop that was a 25-year veteran thought she had her taser, but she had her gun, and she shot him.
Just a
This
quick
is
note. It's like time and time
yeah.
again, you see like this asymmetrical escalation of force, and you can watch the video if you have the spoons to watch it, and like you can tell that just like there's no reason for the police to be that aggressive towards somebody who ostensibly, what like you said, the reason for them getting pulled over was some trifle about air freshener. Um, and
I just want to ask. I cannot think of a more blatant case of driving while black, because think about it. An air freshener on the rear view mirror. How many of us have cars? Okay, first of all, for those who are lucky enough to have cars, how many of us have air fresheners? Your graduation tassel. Uh, some people who I know who are having children, their baby shoes are on the rear view mirror. Things of that nature.
nine out of ten
That
people would have no idea that's like bad or illegal or finable.
it's illegal, but everyone does it. And if you're telling me that it was that his air freshener obscured his vision that much, you're telling was his air freshener the size of a tablet? Like, you know what I'm saying? Was a tablet swinging on his? No, it wasn't. Now, yes, we all agree him trying to get back into his car and drive off was dumb. But you cannot tell me this does not remind you of Fruitville Station. This don't remind you of the other time an officer was reaching for their taser and then shot somebody to death for no reason. Like it does not. I'm sorry. It's for me, no, I don't think it was an accident that this woman was reaching for her taser. She was reaching for her taser, even though she said she's reaching for her taser, but she grabbed her gun. That means your muscle memory that you've had for the last 25 years as a professional police officer means that you reach for your gun all the time. You don't reach for your taser, you reach for your gun.
I gotta say too, like, that whole argument being put out, like, oh, it was an error or mistake, like, that's worse. I almost think that's worse in a way, because it's like uh, so you're admitting that, like, your gross incompetence, that you didn't reach for the non-lethal item on your belt, uh, led to you committing manslaughter. Like, like, if I were to do this in my profession, like, I work in healthcare, if I were to accidentally kill a client, through some sort of malpractice of my own, like, there's not a question. I was like, oh, well, you didn't mean to do it, Mr. Argo, so you're free to go, have fun. No, I'd be fired and in prison. That's where I would be. That's, like, that's just,
Yeah. So she did resign, and she is facing charges of manslaughter. She should be charged with manslaughter, because I also yeah, if I was working in a hospital and I accidentally killed a patient, you know, if I accidentally gave a patient the wrong drugs, then yeah, that is manslaughter. I would go to jail. I gave somebody the wrong drugs. You know, if I'm driving a school bus and I accidentally run into somebody while I'm driving a school bus full of kids, and one of those kids gets seriously injured, that's on me. This is no different for police officers. Which leads to the two stories that I wanted to get to that I didn't get a chance to talk about. So we're clear. The lady should go to jail. Uh, 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 President Biden telling protesters that we shouldn't be looting, when you should be telling those same voters that helped get you elected that we hear you and justice will be served. You're telling them, hey, we don't need you looting. It's one of the dumbest things that the president should have said at this time. Obviously, uh,
if
he's
you mind,
making it so
can
easy.
can I jump off of that? Because there was something I wanted to speak to,
Yeah,
the whole the uprisings
go ahead.
that have happened, and solidarity to folks over in Brooklyn Center. There have been, like, it has been very extreme, the reaction from the police, outnumbering protesters, like 2 to 1, tear gas, rubber bullets, the whole enchilada. One night, they were firing directly at protesters. Behind the protesters were apartment buildings where children live. Who, again, inhaling tear gas and everything is unhealthy enough as an adult. It's just even worse with children. But despite all that, people are still coming out. I think there was this big question, once Biden gets elected, are people just going to, like, go to sleep? And I think this definitively answers the question. No, people are still going to take to the streets to protest against these injustices, these murders by the state. And I mean, the police response also shows too. It's like, if you thought that, voting for Biden was just going to magically fix these things, no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
And just one other thing, like, the whole, like, looting thing comes up again, and it always does. And I highly recommend. I'm in the middle of reading this book called "In Defense of Looting." It's recommended to me by a friend, and it really does go into the history of, like, looting as an act of protest against. Because think of it, like, when we live in a country where that values property over human life. So that in itself is, it's a very concrete and very radical act of protest. And I think in most cases, like, you're talking about somebody referred to it as a proletarian expropriation, i.e., you're getting goods back in the hands of the people. And I gotta say too, like, this whole narrative about, like, destroying your own communities, it's a wildly racist one that has a legacy going back to the civil rights movement and even preceding that. But, like, what destroys your community? Is it when somebody in your community gets murdered by the state, or when a target gets vandalized? Like, what actually destroys the
Uh,
community? That's
yeah,
important.
yeah. I, there's a lot of the stuff that you just said that I absolutely agree with. I mean, Martin Luther King, famous quote that most people always misunderstand. Uh, when Martin Luther King was asked about it in the 60s about riots and looting, he said riots are the language of the unheard. And what has America failed to hear? They failed to hear the plight of the Negro. They are failed to heal the plight of Black Americans. Just the scorn, the suffering, and the injustice that has been put upon us to bear. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what that was his response. And yeah, I'm not shocked that the police acted that way towards the rioters who want justice. And I'm just as much as I wasn't shocked when the police did not act in that same way when Vanilla Isis stormed the Capitol, or, or like I'm not shocked. It's not. They would
I don't
rather.
think we're gonna deep dive into the story, but there was recently a story that came out where Capitol Police personnel said like they were literally told not to use, like they asked if they could use some of the same types of munitions that you and I might be familiar with if protests have been to, but they said no, don't use tear gas or rubber bullets or any of the other stuff that was unleashed on people who were just out protesting this most recent police murder. So yeah, it was,
No, they were told not to because again we have rampant white supremacy in our police department, in our law enforcement that agreed with some of those protesters, so they weren't going to do that on their own people, but they will do it to the others. But anyway, that leads to these particular stories, which I was talking to you about. That I didn't realize that you didn't know anything about. I saw this and I thought this was mad crazy. So, uh, Boston. This is out of Boston. This is coming from GBH news. Um, this is talking about the past president union leader, uh Patrick Rose Sr. Um this police officer who was a union representative, who's a union leader, former union leader, who's now in jail now facing multiple crimes because the new Boston mayor is not taking any junk. And shout out to the new Boston mayor. Let me I'm gonna get her name. But the former head of Policeman Patrolman Association was accused of assaulting children, sexually assaulting children since 1995.
95.
Since 1995, since 95, this man has been accused of sexually assaulting a 12-year-old back in 1995. The 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 Despite all that, Rose kept his badge and continued to represent the union and continue to be a police officer for 21 years. For 21 years. He's in jail. He's in jail. Since then, he's continued he's alleged to continue to abuse children since then. The former mayor, when journalists tried to get the IA, the Internal Affairs report, the former mayor refused to let that information get out to the public. The so so Former Mayor Walsh refused to have any transparency. Now, current mayor the current mayor, acting mayor Kim Janey, she's acting mayor Kim Janey is saying, nah, we're going to get all the information that we need. We're going to have full transparency, and she wants everything to be public now. This police officer was abusing kids for over 21 years. The police union and the AI and internal affairs knew about it. The former mayor knew about it. And it's only until it was and he was arrested. He was arrested August 2020. But now this information that they were trying to hide has come out recently, that they've known for years. They protected this predator. So me and you talk about defunding the police. We talk about breaking down the blue wall of silence. We talk about how, yes, we need to protect unions. We were just talking about on Amazon. We need to fight for unions, right?
Mm-hmm.
When unions do this, when they protect predators like this, we have a problem. That union needs to be that former mayor, his the police department overseers, everybody who's in internal affairs, everybody who kept their mouth shut about this man needs to go to jail.
Yeah, and I want to leapfrog off two things. One, I'm really shocked I'm not hearing all about this from all the QAnon back the blue people. I mean, I thought they were all about save the children and stuff. Seems to be like a cause du jour.
Hey,
sorry.
Wait, what happened to QAnon? QAnon was talking about how this child predators. They ain't said nothing about Matt Gaetz. They ain't said nothing. They ain't said nothing about Tucker Carlson's alleged issues. This is a police patrol. He was a Boston Police Patrolsman Association president. He was the president.
Yeah. I also wanted to top off that. So you mentioned like police unions, and I think like this case, the story that you brought up, is a really good example of how police unions are kind of like, they're like a bizarro union. They're like they're like the mirror universe bad version of a union, because effectively what they do is they protect the protectors of capital. That's really what police are, and I could go into a whole historical explanation of that, but like they protect them from, one, just the kind of consequences you're laying out here talking about, protect them from, and I also protect them from accountability from other working class people, from the community. Good example here in the city of Kalamazoo, there has been consistent efforts over the years to try to get a police advisory board that actually has control, like community control over the police. And time again, there is one organization that is constantly preventing that from happening, and that is the local police union. So yeah, like the
facts.
It's a pretty standard thing that like police unions basically act as a way to protect police from accountability, rather than how you and I might understand how a union is supposed to function. But
okay, so that was one story about police. That's one story that's about police unions. There's another story that I want to talk about, and this is the other quick hit that I wanted to get to. So obviously, I'm glad that man's in jail. The fact that it took over a year. He was arrested in August of 2020. We are just now getting information that the police union, the police organization, everyone that was involved, even the former mayor, knew that this man was a predator, and they let him continue working and being a predator for another 21 years. 95, dog, 95? In 95, I was at Woodward. I don't think I was at Woodward. I was in elementary. like you know what I mean? 95. Anyway.
I was like, I was in my front yard over in the Eston, just like playing Power Rangers with the neighborhood kids.
Bruh, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
I was playing Sega Genesis. Like, you know what I'm saying? 95. Anyway. Back to okay. So this is the other story that I wanted to talk about because I don't know if you saw this. Did you see? And I want for everybody to remember this when they tell you that we can't have reoccurring checks. When people say to you, we can't have reoccurring stimulus checks, we can't have Medicare for all, we can't have uh, all of the things that me and Andy talk about that are populist left ideas.
I pay for it.
Boston Dynamic, yeah, yeah. So I don't know if you saw this, but during some of the protests, Boston Dynamics introduced a robot dog,
Oh, oh
a
boy.
RoboDog. So the police in New York, it was a crime fighting robot dog. I'm getting this. Wait, wait.
Cyberpunk
This is
2020.
not a joke. This
Because
is not a this is not a joke. This is not a punchline. This is real facts. I'm getting this is from I'm gonna read from what's this? This is the Intercept. The Intercept's talking about this story. So there was a new crime fighting robot dog that Boston Dynamics, the same people that showed that was creating robots to replace warehouse workers. That same company has created a crime fighting robot dog, right? That New York police departments were using to were using in to patrol neighborhoods. They're breaking out this new crime fighting dog. Jamal Bowman went on, I think it was on MSNBC or CNN, I do not remember. But he had the best response to it that I wish we could play right now. We're not in the studio, so we can't play it. But but to sum up what he said, so this is what our taxpayer dollars are going to, because our taxpayer dollars help fund this crime fighting robot dog. So you're telling me that we can't put environmentally friendly infrastructure in these neighborhoods. We can't give the people who live in these neighborhoods a living wage or Medicare for all or universal free college. We cannot fix the systemic problems of those neighborhoods, but we can use the tax paying dollars from those citizens to create a crime fighting dog that's going to help patrol the neighborhood.
yeah,
That's what we're doing.
I should put in like this is actually kind of the historical imperial playbook. Like this is what happens when empires are in decay. They put all of their money into their military and their policing and none into the actual citizenry. Like this is kind of what this is what happened in Rome. Rome they were too big and they had no more like investment for the people. They were all drinking out of lead pipes. Just I guess in our situation, like the late stage U.S. empire gets pretty ridiculous, where we have like robot crime dogs. So like, there's like some from like a
My,
goofy, that'd be too silly to be in RoboCop. Like it's like you look at these things, they're like we
but
love
that's the thing. That's the thing. The whole premise of RoboCop was that when corporations get involved with crime fighting, instead of using that money to invest into the city that they're putting the RoboCop in, it harms the community. It does detrimental harm to not just the community, but to that corporation. Because RoboCop end up shooting the CEO of the corporation. Like,
yeah. Reality is stranger than fiction. Sometimes reality catches up though.
it 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 bothered as and I'm saying this as someone who's a giant nerd. I love robots. Okay, I love robots. I love science. I loved RoboCop when I was a kid. Like I love that's my jam, right?
Mhm.
Using taxpayer money to create a crime fighting dog when we could be using that taxpayer money to make sure that the infrastructure of those neighborhoods are better, so they have cleaner air, clean water, things of that nature, is shows the priority of those that are in power. They don't care that you're suffering or that you're hurting, that you're drinking lead water, that you have lead paint, that you don't have fresh food. They want you to suffer and behave. They want you to suffer in silence.
Yep. Well,
And your money and the money that you are going to be, the money that you're giving to to our collective union, our collective to our country, are not going to be spent on making your life better, but it will be spent on better ways to throw you in jail for cheap labor.
Or more
Like
ridiculous.
it will be spent on
Yeah. I'm gonna next time I'm at a
that story.
things are gonna heat up. I'm gonna get arrested by a robot dog. That's just
Dog. Okay, like
Yeah.
as much as I like, and that's the thing, dog. As much as I'm like, oh man, it's a robot dog. That's super dope. This robot dog is being used by the police to help throw more of us in jail. And I'm just like, it's amazing. Think about this. Because the robot dog is supposed to be help deploy so they can help find drugs and things of that nature. Notice they took the robot dog into the projects. They didn't take the robot dog on the Wall Street. Okay, you telling me that you're not going to take the robot dog to a place where there's definitely going to be some cocaine.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
definitely some Adderall. There's definitely some. They are definitely like, what? Okay, wait.
All right.
Speaking
Well,
of, okay, so
let's,
those are all the police stories that I feel like talking about.
all right. I think we're actually.
Let's take a break. You want to take a break because it's 7 o'clock?
Take a quick break, and we come back. We got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah.
Y'all listening to the Hood Rat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find our full show on our Facebook page. We posted it up after the fact. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We break down our show into smaller segments based on topic. We'd love it if you subscribe and share those out. Keep your dial locked. This is the Hood Rat Strategist radio program, your only source for political revolution.